Hey everybody, Brett from AstartesGaming here, back with some more Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord coverage. So, with the most recent dev blog being posted today, well, yesterday for you guys, but they posted a video alongside it with some more Captain Mode gameplay. Normally I wouldn't bother since it's just more of the same game mode, but they did show us a new faction. Before it was like all Battanians versus Empire. This time it's the Khuzait versus the Empire, so I figured I'd go over it just so we could take a closer look at the Khuzait faction and maybe get an idea of what some of their troops were going to be. So let's go ahead and jump in. And let me make sure I've got some audio, because that's one thing I wanted to talk about in this. Let's give you guys a little bit of audio here. That should be fine. Okay. So we're looking at the troops right now. This is the Khuzait units that we've been able to see so far. So they have step footmen, step spears, dismounted bows, which are just archers, and then tribal horsemen, lancers, and Khan's guard. Okay. And there's also some horse archer units down here that we can't quite see. But pretty much exactly what we expected from these guys. Which is kind of funny because from the Battanians it was like the exact opposite. So we've got them running around now. And one thing that I'm going to pick on really hard in this video is something I've talked about a little bit in the past. It's pretty much the lack of AI holding formation. We're going to see the Empire get absolutely slaughtered here because they can't seem to hold still in a formation long enough to actually fight effectively. So we have the Khuzaits capturing a flag here, and you see it work pretty much exactly like you'd expect it to. The flag drops, it changes to your banner, and then it goes back up. And so that is effectively showing you the capture time without having an actual counter. So the Calradian Empire starts with a pretty interesting tactic here. They're advancing behind a shield wall, which is pretty cool, so the archers are firing through the gaps. Smart on their part, because they are getting, you know, shot at from pretty much every direction by the Khuzait. And one thing that they probably should have done is brought some cavalry of their own, or used better tactics to, you know, sort of negate the advantage of their cavalry. But they didn't do that here. So it's going to get ugly. But yeah, we see the Empire continuing to advance. I'm not sure where they're going. I think there's a flag. Yeah, there's a flag ahead of them that I think they're trying to capture. We've got some stragglers here. Probably not a great idea, but okay. Let's see. Here's the Khuzait again. We got a little bit of clipping there on his helmet. I'm not sure what that is, but whatever. There's like a piece of cloth sticking through his neck. I do like the Khuzait armor. It looks really good, especially when they're moving around. The shoulder pieces and stuff slide very naturally. Also, the sound of the bows, I think, is fantastic. The sound design is really, really good. The sounds of like wood knocking together, and then the tension being released from the bow, they all sound perfect. Here's another cool armor. I like this like layered look with the like long tunic and then a gambeson, and then this like leather lamellar armor over it. I think that's a cool look. We get some first-person action right here, which is nice to see. I don't know that we've seen a ton of first-person to this point, but they never said that they were going to take it out, so I was never worried. But it's still nice to see. And now we're getting a look at the dismounted archers. A nice little formation there. And so here we see the Empire really struggling to hold any sort of formation. They were standing together for a little bit. They broke apart, they got back together a little bit, and then the cavalry pretty much just overwhelmed them. Their formation completely falls apart, as it has in pretty much every instance that we've seen. Rather than using their pole arms, they seem to be pretty intent on fighting with swords against cavalry. Not sure why, but here we see the formations just dissolve completely. And this is how you get killed against cavalry. You run around by yourself. And this is something that we've seen in basically every Bannerlord video to date, is that the AI just can't seem to stay in formation. What the devs have said is they basically go into like self-preservation mode when they get close to an enemy, but all that really means is that they're pretty much all fighting individually rather than fighting as a cohesive unit, and that's just not how medieval combat works, or like any combat besides like modern stuff, I guess. And even that, you could argue, is still very, very squad oriented. So they're trying to hold a formation there, or ball up at least, and they just got trampled. We do get to see some cool like horse barding and stuff though. A few of those horses have like leather lamellar or like padded leather armor on them. This guy just got wrecked by a point blank arrow to the face. I don't know why this guy thought running around by himself was a good idea. But they're trying to like circle around that flag and they're not doing a great job. I'm not sure what the Empire's plan was here, but they really should have just picked a flag, formed up like a square around it, and let their archers take shots from inside that square. But instead they just sort of started wandering and the cavalry picked them apart, as, you know, I think anyone would have expected. They're just getting murdered at this point. All the armor looks great though. The animations, I think, are pretty fantastic looking. Everything looks really fluid. I don't think they have anything left to tweak on that. They might say differently, but to me, the animations look like a finished product. Here we see some more horse archery. Again, I think the shoulder pieces on this armor move really well. You can kind of see them flex as he moves his shoulders, and then as he lifts to draw the bow, it lifts with it. Same with the Calradian armor that we see here. And yeah, we've got loners running around by themselves despite being charged by cavalry. Some of these guys don't seem to understand what they're doing. So like self-preservation doesn't look like it's very good at self-preserving because they don't seem to know what to do. And again, these aren't players. I mean, there are players in this, but for the most part, we're looking at AI. So the AI, I think, has a little bit of a ways to go. Personally, I think when you are issuing formation orders, they should just completely ignore the self-preservation thing and fight from the formation. If they can't reach somebody with their weapon from the formation, then they shouldn't be attacking, is my opinion. When you tell them to charge, that's a different story. When you say break, ranks, and charge, you know, go nuts, do whatever you need to do. Let's pause here. We'll get another look at some of these units. Actually, we've already seen all these. We'll get a nice look at some armor in the background there. Again, the scale looks a bit flat, but everything else looks really good. There's the war spear that they're intent on not using. Stubborn, yeah, that's about right. And let's see, this is another guy playing as the Calradians as well. Nothing new here. Again, same infantry that we've seen, same archers we've seen, same cavalry that we've seen. Composite bows, short swords. And again, not bringing any cavalry. I mean, I can understand there are ways to, again, pull this off without cavalry, because the Khuzaits are going to rely heavily on cavalry. And so if you just run a couple of equites, they're going to get picked apart as well. But they're not using their infantry effectively to counteract that. They need to basically set up spear formations and find choke points that the cavalry is going to have to attack them through. And rather than doing that, they seem to be intent on running around in these open fields. So I imagine that they're going to get slaughtered here as well. Again, we hear some cool sounds from the bow there. Let's see. So they're just going to bunch up. Again, you know, they said that communication between players was like really impressive. I'm not seeing it here because they keep doing the same thing, and they also don't seem to understand that if they all just get in one big line, the cavalry can just run around that line. But yeah, they really want this flag for some reason. I'm wondering if that's the only flag on this map or something. I don't think it is, because we see A, B, and C. And this is C being raised right now. So why they're intent on C and not A or B is beyond me. But yeah, I would have probably done things differently. They're finally using their spears. That's good. We see some cool horse farting there again. They're finally setting up some kind of formation here, putting their shields up in the right direction. He just got wrecked. But yeah, a lot of chaos here. And people have been saying like, oh, it's not that they won't hold formations, it's that people are issuing charge orders. That's not what we're seeing here. They're not charging. This is a quote-unquote formation in this game. What that means is they'll stand in a line, and as soon as anything comes near them, they start running around with like chickens with their heads cut off. And I think that's something that needs to get fixed because it's unrealistic. It really diminishes the effectiveness of formations. If you're going to maintain a shield wall, somebody can't run out of it and still hold that shield wall. Like, you can't have gaps in your formation. It just doesn't work that way. We see like one guy off by himself there, another one here. Not sure what the hell they were thinking. That was a nice shot, but he's gonna get killed anyways. Yeah. Like, what was the point of that? Like, trying to Rambo a flag as an archer. I wonder if a lot of these people are just like new to Mount & Blade, because we are watching people command these things, so maybe we just have some new players that think this is like Call of Duty, and you don't really need to have an effective strategy. A couple of these guys seem to get it. They're bunching up their spears around the flags, but just one unit of spears is not going to be enough, especially since they keep picking open areas. I mean, granted, this isn't a great map for fighting the Crusades, but they certainly could have done better in my opinion. But I guess that's a good sign for the game if the biggest gripe that you have is the terrible players playing it. You know, the game looks fantastic, it's just the people playing it really suck. So that's good. But again, I think the AI needs some work in terms of formations. I really do think it's as simple as just basically telling the AI not to move when they've been issued a formation order, like you go stand here and stay there. Because they're just doing too much wandering. That's really what it comes down to. They need to get to their spot and stay there. If they're told to charge, fine, do whatever you need to do, run wherever you need to run. But when I tell you to get into like a square formation, you need to stay in the square formation, otherwise it's not a square formation, you know? So yeah, here we go with another quote-unquote formation, which is just a bunch of guys standing. The thing too is they're bunching up to the point where they can't even attack. So the guys in the middle are useless because they can't attack through the other guys. And they look like pin cushions at this point. But they're holding surprisingly well. We've seen 2 flags leave the map so far, so it's come down to just B. B is the only thing left. 2 of the Calradian players, it looks like, have been wiped out. And apparently this guy's taunting them from like right there. And yeah, I expected that to happen, because this isn't a game that you can solo. And we have another, yeah, another mounted lancer come in and just wreck somebody because they're not paying attention. Interesting. Is his armor supposed to be asymmetric like that? He is an archer. Actually, no, it's not. That's weird. So the physics got messed up there. It looks like that shoulder piece got like tucked up under. So the Empire actually won that one, although it was close. I'm actually very surprised that they pulled that one out because it was a mess. But yeah, so that has been the Crusade versus the Empire. Again, the takeaways from that: sound design is great, graphics look great, animations look great. The physics was a little wonky in that one, but that's the only time we've ever seen that happen. So I'm just gonna take that as, you know, whatever. I don't think that's a common thing. The players playing didn't seem like they knew what the hell they were doing. The AI, I think, needs to, at least in formations, be retooled a little bit. It's not that the AI is being stupid necessarily. It's just that the behaviors that they're carrying out don't match what they should be doing in those situations. So, once more, I know I've said this like twice now, but all I think they really need to do there is when you issue a formation order to the AI, have them go to whatever spot is theirs in that formation and fight from that spot. If the formation moves, then they move, but if the formation holds, they should not be running around within that formation. That's not how formations work. Now, when you issue a charge order, if they're not in formation, then that self-preservation AI that they're doing is fine, because they don't need to be holding a specific spot. But you can't have a shield wall if people are constantly running back and forth out of it. It just doesn't work that way. It's going to really, really hurt factions that rely on heavy infantry. The Sturgeons, for example, are supposed to be like this, sort of like this Viking Russian hybrid, sort of like the Rus people that came from Sweden down to sort of Russia and intermingled with the steppe tribes there. They're going to be relying a lot on heavy infantry. That's their faction's main thing. And if they can't effectively hold a shield wall, that faction is going to be garbage. The same can be said for any faction that, like the Empire, for example. They have cavalry, they have archers, but their heavy infantry, I think, is like the basis or the main strength of their force, and without that, the cavalry can't function as well as it could. We see it here. The first game they got completely trashed because they were all just running around and the cavalry was picking them apart. It happened in the second one as well, but they managed to pull it out. I think in part because they got to that more consolidated area where the cavalry couldn't run around as freely. But yeah, so that's my main takeaway from this. Hopefully you guys found this interesting and informative. There's another gameplay video that came out alongside GamesCom from GameStar, which is a German video game publication. We might look at that next. So if you guys would like to see that, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I had a great time talking about some Bannerlord with you, and I look forward to seeing you guys back here for my next Bannerlord video.